Good afternoon, everybody. So the subject of reform, I appreciate the opportunity to be here to speak to you all here today. I wrote down some remarks, so please bear with me. Without peace, there can be no justice. However, in order to provide people with peace, in a society ripe with inequity, there must be reform. The cost of peace is nothing. It is free. Justice can be free, but it's usually withheld from those in power. But the problem with reform is that it comes with the price of having those in power basically give that back to the people. So here we stand 155 years after the last slaves were set free in this country, and we're here to ask our nation a question, and that is whether or not it is ready to do the work and pay the price that is necessary for real reform. While prior generations fought hard to achieve basic equality, the struggle that we face today is not equality, but rather it is one of equity. To reform something means we would have to reconstruct it, something that's already in place. And in order to do this, we're going to have to face some really hard truths. We have to acknowledge that what was built already is not perfect. It could mean that what we have built is working, it's just working in a way that was not designed for us, because the definition of we the people has broadened since our country's inception. The criminal justice system, the healthcare system, the economic, educational, and government system are all in need of serious reform today. Let's talk about the criminal justice system. While its original intent might have been to deter and to punish those who enter it, it's become increasingly clear that this system disproportionately affects people of color and punishes those who cannot afford access to a good attorney. To reform it, we need to eliminate mandatory minimums, put discretion back in the hands of judges, and create a way for nonviolent drug offenders to re-enter society and not have to ruin their lives because they can no longer vote or have to check a box that says they were once an ex-offender. We have a problem with police brutality and over-policing in our country. The murder of George Floyd was one bad moment for most Americans. But for many Black Americans, it was an entire lifetime of memories that flooded back. Last weekend's murder of Rayshard Brooks at the height of all of this unrest further qualifies the need for additional police reform. The state should incentivize the use of body cameras and provide resources to local police departments to help them diversify their workforce. We need to have citizen review boards that have the ability to discipline cases before they are actually closed. When we look at reforming our educational system, we must know that in Black school districts, they are underfunded by over $23 billion than white school districts in this country. So we need to reform our education system to ensure that our children can get a high quality education right in the neighborhoods that they live in without the need to travel to the other side of town. And in order to help all children succeed, our state needs to create a high quality early education system with high standards and provide those child care workers a livable wage. As we prepare to address our business culture, we have to acknowledge that some of the things we've seen from our corporations are pretty nice, right? But we want our companies to do more than take down old racist images off of pancake boxes and products. We want to see the great-grandchildren of Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben in the C-suites and acting as executives in America's companies. When we look at the healthcare system, this pandemic has shown that while African Americans make up a little under 14% of the population, we have accounted for over 24% of our country's deaths. Now, we know that providing high quality, healthy access to care is not just something that should be given to people who can afford it, but needs to be provided to everyone in this country. And we can do it through healthcare subsidies, and we can eliminate pre-existing healthcare conditions if we choose to. Right here in the state of Florida, we have over 1 million people who don't have access to Medicaid because our state refuses to expand it. That's money that we've already spent, and we can help working families. Obviously, we want to see reform in our government. Even the politicians that won't acknowledge that your Black Lives Matter will acknowledge that your black vote matters, which is why they go to all the lengths that they do to try to suppress your vote. Well, we want our country to live up to its promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for everyone. And the way they can do that is by starting to affirm the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and putting back in Section 2 and Section 5 of pre-clearance, and do that without any political interference. We have a president who doesn't want Floridians to vote by mail. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard, considering that he himself and his press secretary get to vote by mail. Finally, when we talk about reforming our economics, we have to remember that in 1969, 1/3 of all Black Americans were living in poverty. As of 2016, that number has dropped down to just 22%, but it's still twice as high as our white counterparts. By providing a livable wage for everyone in this country that chooses to work over 40 hours a week, we can change the plight of the future for all generations to come. We need our country to eliminate the practice of redlining when it comes to banking and insurance, so that Black and brown people aren't paying higher interest rates and fees when they go to do banking and purchase homes. Now, these type of reforms, they're going to require a new social contract with America that's going to prioritize people over politics and profits, and participation over production. But as I said in the beginning, these reforms won't be free, and they're going to require a commitment at every level of government and all through these major corporations in our country. Because we have to remember, while we can change the laws, none of this means anything if we can't change the hearts and the minds of our fellow brothers. The price of reform is high, but the price of inaction is even higher. If you march and you fight and you organize, know that we are going to be right here with you. But all of that means absolutely nothing if you don't get out and vote on August 18th and again on November 3rd. Thank you all for the time. God bless.